a generation ago in hearings for a Supreme Court justice, well, not quite a generation, I guess 20 years ago or so, you had Senator Joe Biden talking about the kinds of things that will be issues of control and privacy and autonomy and chips that can be inserted into humans to control and monitor our behavior. Listen to what he said in questioning the Supreme Court Justice John Roberts.
And we'll be faced with equally consequential decisions in the 21st century. Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
So this is something that's been in the works for quite some time. Back to the Fourth Industrial Revolution book by Klaus Schwab, he said, the Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies will not stop at becoming part of the physical world around us. They will become part of us, just like you heard there in the clip. Indeed, some of us already feel that our smartphones have become an extension of ourselves. Today's external devices, from wearable computers to virtual reality headsets, will almost certainly become implantable in our bodies and brains. Active implantable microchips that break the skin barrier of our bodies. There's the Fourth Industrial Revolution in a nutshell. Tech going within and losing a grip on what it means to be human. That's coming in a subsequent session on the Great Merge and AI and all of these things. But as we're thinking about slaves to the algorithm or servants of God, we can make choices in the meantime to not let our external devices control us and be an appendage of us. We dealt with that in great length in the media mind, and making sure that we have boundaries for our use of technology even now, or we're already on the slippery slope, like he said. Implanted devices that will likely also help to communicate thoughts normally expressed verbally through a built-in smartphone in our brains, and potentially unexpressed thoughts or moods. And it's going to do this by reading brainwaves and other signals. So this is all the same thing that Harari and Senator Biden were saying. He's saying that that's coming, being able to read brain and not just read it, but control it. Mind control using sound waves. World Economic Forum headline. We ask a scientist how it works. Now, in the article, of course, they end up saying, well, it's technology that will inevitably be invented. That's just kind of how technology works, they say. And so since it's going to come, we want to be the ones to control and guide and regulate its use. So just trust us. After all, we are partnered with the companies that are rolling the technology out. And so there are no financial conflicts of interest or ideological agendas at play with the WEF. But here's from the article. I can see the day coming where a scientist will be able to control what a person sees in their mind's eye by sending the right waves to the right place in their brain. My guess is that most objections will be similar to those we hear today about subliminal messages and advertisement, only much more vehement. This technology is not without its risks of misuse. It could be a revolutionary healthcare technology for the sick, or a perfect controlling tool with which the ruthless control the weak. This time, though, the control would be literal control over minds, a power that they would love to have to use for good purposes. So we want to make sure that that is facilitated and takes place under our guidance of the global guardians of humanity, as they call themselves. Now, if you go back to the Dark Ages, you find one of the reasons why infant baptism was practiced and enforced so coercively was, a lot of people aren't aware of this. In the history, it was the registry of the citizenry having a database of all of the members of the society was a very important step in order to exert control over the society. You need to know who people are, where they are, what age they are, and so on. So when you have information about people, it allows you to exert more control over people. So it was like an ID. It was like an identification. That was their national ID card, was you've been registered, you've got the papers with the medieval church as you were baptized and christened in the church by the priest in the Dark Ages. Now, today, it's not that way, but what is something every baby just about in the world undergoes today? This is ID 2020, a World Economic Forum linked entity that said immunization is an entry point for digital identity. Because if we're going to have the fourth industrial revolution, Not only is everybody going to be online, but online is going to be in everybody. And we need this system where we're merging in with this metaverse, as we're going to see in a subsequent session, the metaverse. The people in this need to be identified, just like people in the regular society need to have driver's licenses. And so we're going to have a digital ID globally with World Health Day around the corner on April 7th. We'd like to bring attention to the intersection of global health and digital identity, and specifically the argument for immunization rates to scale digital identity amongst the most hard to reach children. So we're going to get everybody a digital ID. We really want all the third world children and the developing nations to be immunized, and that's going to allow us to implement a digital identification of every human on planet Earth. Globally, an estimated 95% already of children receive at least one dose of some vaccine. The number is staggering. No other public health intervention reaches more children and impacts more families. So you can see them just salivating over the idea of a global digital ID. If we just capture the immunization progress, capture that extra 5%, we don't have anywhere close to 95% with any other procedure that's done. Infant baptism in the Dark Ages, just the same thing today with the immunization. We can utilize it for identification and thus in the future control purposes. So this ID 2020 Alliance launched the Digital ID program with the government of Bangladesh and Gavi. That's Bill Gates's vaccine group. So they actually started this in Bangladesh, and they had this annual summit and they launched this. And now when you look at the World Economic Forum just saying we need identity in a digital world, a new chapter in the social contract, people need to have global digital ID in order to access internet websites, buy and sell online, use social media, etc. You need to have a digital ID confirming that it's you, face scans, everything like that. Now, it used to be controversial in the United States that there could be the potential for a national ID card. The Social Security Administration, when that was founded, it was reassuring people, no, this is not a national ID. Your Social Security number is not a national ID, because the idea of some, distant federal government, some bureaucratic power having the information on every citizen was a little bit concerning to people. Now, of course, we ended up with the IRS, we ended up with the Social Security numbers, but never like an ID card to go about the country. You got your state ID for that, and we were good with that, But when the state IDs then now have to be standardized, there was the Real ID Act, and privacy people were up in arms over that, and it was kind of a whimper on the national scale. But we do kind of now have a national ID with the Real ID Act in America. But you think about the fact that if a national ID card was a controversial idea, and that's within your own sovereign nation, this idea of having a global digital ID, this would be unheard of to freedom-loving minded people who were the ones that were objecting to the Real ID Act and national ID cards in the past. But here we stand. And it is an algorithmic system that will collect and capture every human soul. And by that, I don't just mean person. I mean their very essence, who they are, their hopes and dreams, their beliefs, their likes and dislikes, their struggles, their passions, their growth, their everything about you, personality, psychological profile, character, your strengths and weaknesses. Everything is feeding into this system. And when the global ID becomes the capstone on that, then it can be globalist run and controlled, a technocracy the likes of which the most ravenous and ambitious authoritarian government never could have imagined. What does this have to do with prophecy? What does this have to do with the Bible? No buy, no sell is coming, where every person is going to be under a system of control. And it was kind of hard to imagine what that might look like in the past. People might make an excuse, oh, this is in the distant future. Spiritual preparations, I can put that off and procrastinate. But we're on the cusp of unbelievable, not just cataclysmic events, not just events that turn the table over so it can be reset, but technologies that can be enforcing the means and mechanisms of coercion, of deception, and finally of death decrees by those who would seek to control the minds of people. I mean, you've got the devil when he's saying free will is over. That's a thing of the past. The idea and notion of free will, that's history. So what I want to be our future is a refined and ennobled and redeemed will, where we offer it to God and we say, I want to be a servant of the Most High God, and I choose ye this day whom I will serve. not to be a slave of the algorithm, to find boundaries and lines where I don't want to merge in with this right now and surrender my whole self and soul into the hands of the technocrats, but I want it in the hands of the Almighty God. If that is your choice, pray to Jesus and say, here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it. I want to be ready for these final events. And right now, I want a will that is strengthened. I want to exercise and utilize the will to subdue self, to subdue tendencies and impulses that arise from the flesh, that I might be redeemed and restored and transformed by the renewing of my mind, using our individuality, using our free will to bring glory to God in the context of a great controversy where Satan seeks to negate free will and God seeks to dignify the human person by granting us that freedom to choose him to become Christ-like in our character. That can only be done through choice, through free will. Use it while we still have time. May God bless you.